Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, verses 45 to 48. Little echo here in the room, and we welcome you all here in the temple room in the Bhakti Center. Text 45. I'll just chant the Sanskrit. I want to ask you to try to repeat because it's a few verses here. Uchascha suhrida Krishnam swagatam teti ramhasa naikopi abhoji kevala ehita sadhu bhujayam. Translation. The cowherd boyfriends said to Lord Krishna, "You have returned so quickly. We have not eaten even one morsel in your absence. Please come here and take your meal without distraction." So the title of this chapter is Brahma's prayers to Lord Krishna. And so Krishna's friends, they're saying to him, "You have returned so quickly." Prabhupada's purport, or maybe now already disciples of Srila Prabhupada. The words Swagatam Teti Ramhasa indicate the cowherd boys were congratulating Krishna for having caught the calves back so quickly from the forest. Now Lord Krishna's beloved friends urged him to sit down properly and eat to his full satisfaction. According to Srila Prabhupada's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cowherd boy friends felt quite jubilant and were eager to eat with their dear friend Krishna. Swagatam, welcome. Welcome back. You have come so quickly. Text 46. Tato hasan hrishikesho yhavihritya saharbhakai darsayam charam madgajram yavartata vanadvrajam. Then Lord Hrishikesha, smiling, finished his lunch in the company of his cowherd friends while they were returning from the forest to their homes in Vraja. Lord Krishna showed the cowherd boys the skin of the dead serpent Agasura. And now 47. Barha prasuna vanadatu pitritanga prodhama venu dalasringa rasot sabaidhya vasangrinan angagita pabrita kritir gopi drig utsava drishi prabhishesha goshtam. This is a nice description of Krishna. Lord Krishna's transcendental body was decorated with peacock feathers and flowers and painted with forest minerals, and his bamboo flute loudly and festively resounded. As he called out to his calves by name, his cowherd boyfriends purified the whole world by chanting his glories. Thus, Lord Krishna entered the cow pasture of his father, Nanda Maharaj, and the sight of his beauty at once produced a great festival for the eyes of all the cowherd women. Commentary. According to Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, the gopis mentioned here are the elder cowherd ladies, such as Mother Yasoda, who loved Krishna with parental affection. Krishna's cowherd boyfriends were so proud of Krishna's wonderful activities that while entering the village, they all sang his glories. Last verse, text 48. Adyanena maha vyalo yasodha nandasu nuna hato vita vayam chasmad iti bala vraje jagu. As the cowherd boys reached the village of Vraja, they sang, "Today Krishna saved us by killing a great serpent." Some of the boys described Krishna as the son of Yasoda, and others described him as the son of Nanda Maharaj. Purport. This is interesting. Actually, Lord Krishna killed the demon Aghasura 1 year earlier. But the boys, bewildered by the mystic potency of Brahma for 1 year, did not notice the time passing, and thus thought that on that very day, Krishna had killed the demon Aghasura and was now returning home with them. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So these are quite wonderful verses that we've read today, a group of 5 verses. And something very interesting, if we think about these verses also in the context where they appear. The title of the chapter is Prayers, Brahma's Prayers to Lord Krishna. I want to give a little context. So when I was younger, for me to be right was very important. Sometimes ready to trample on relationships or other people's feelings in the interest of proving a point. Proving calling out what I saw as faulty logic. Truth, it seemed, was more important than the relationship. So you establish the truth. Relationship, secondary. So I'm not sure how this works for you, devotees present here in the temple room or online. But yeah, whether for the sake of a relationship that you value, you're comfortable remaining silent or maybe smiling even when you disagree. Today we can explore some of these ideas around truth and false statements and relationships within the context of these verses. So the cowherd boys, they've said a couple of things that are not true, that they're wrong. And this might be surprising, a surprising idea. On the other hand, Brahma, he has offered many, many prayers that are right. So he's spoken truth. The cowherd boys have spoken unconsciously, but they've spoken falsely. And then we can see how Krishna is interacting with each of them, how he's interacting with the boys who spoke things that are wrong, and how he's interacting or interacted with Brahma, who spoke the truth. So in verse 45, we have the boys saying to Krishna, Iti Ramhasa, you have come so quickly. Svagatam, you have welcomed back. You have come so quickly. And they also said, in verse 48, today Krishna killed the serpent. So these two statements, we can look at these. We readers of the Bhagavatam, we know that this is not right. A year later, the boys are seeing Krishna again. So a year earlier, Krishna had sat with the boys and they were taking their lunch. And as they were having their lunch, then the cows started to wander away. And Krishna, he said, let me go and look for those. Let me go and look for those cows. And so he walked away. The description is so beautiful. He's carrying a mixture of, what's he carrying? Yeah. Yogurt rice, yeah, some yogurt and fruits. So we might think yogurt, rice, salty, but there's yogurt and fruits and rice mixed, and he's carrying it with his left hand. Yeah, shouldn't eat with your left hand. He's a small boy. And so he's a small boy. So he's eating with his left hand. He's walking away in the middle of his meal. He has yogurt rice in his left hand. And he's going out to see what happened to those cows. He's told the boys, don't disturb your lunch. You keep eating. I'll go and find them. And while he's away, then Brahma has stolen all of those boys and kept them for an entire year. And during that period, Krishna filled in for them. He expanded as the boys, he expanded as calves as well. Brahma stole boys and calves. And so these boys, they'd been away for a year, but they experienced that year as in Brahma time. And Brahma's one moment is our year. This is a nice concept that we find also in other places in the Bhagavatam. There was a great king named Raivata, and he had a very qualified daughter. Anyone know her name? Revati. Yeah, so he's in Satya Yuga, something like that, much earlier on. And he thinks, there's no one qualified to marry my daughter. Let me consult with Brahma. So he went to Brahma Loka with his daughter. Brahma was hearing the praises of the Vedas, glorifying Vishnu. So Raivata waited for some time. Once Brahma had finished hearing the recitation, Raivata, he asked him, I'm thinking of this king or that king or another king. Which one do you think is a qualified suitor for my daughter? Brahma said, since you've been here, all those kings have long gone. Many generations of kings have come and gone. Yugas have changed. You go back to the earth now, you will be in Kali Yuga. But the end of Dvapara Yuga. But there is one good fortune for you. The Supreme Lord has appeared as Lord Balaram. Go and ask him if he will marry your daughter. You offer your daughter to marry him. And so Revati is married to Baladev. So yeah, Brahma has a different time. And so this one moment is 1 year for the cowherd boys on earth, but they are with Brahma, so they experience it in Brahma time as just one moment. And so they were, by Krishna's arrangement, they were made forgetful of all that had happened, that they had been kidnapped, that they had been kept in a cave for that whole year, that they were now returned to Krishna. And so they say now, incorrectly, Iti Ramhasa, you have come so quickly, because Brahma returned them to where they were a year earlier. And so on cue, Krishna, he arrives back with the cows, and they say, you have come so quickly. Now sit with us and eat your meal. Okay, that's the first incorrect statement, cowherd boys. The second is verse 48. Today, Krishna saved us from a great serpent. That's also incorrect. The killing of Aghasura that they are referring to had happened the same day that Brahma stole the boys. Earlier on, prior to Brahma stealing the boys, Krishna had killed Aghasura. But they are saying today Krishna killed the serpent. Rather, they should say, today Krishna saved us from being kidnapped by Brahma. But they don't know that. They've been made to forget that. And so verse 46 also mentions how Sukadeva Goswami says that while returning home, Krishna showed them Aghasura's skin. Aghasura has been lying there for a year. So after a year, his skin has been dried up. Still, the boys, they don't put it all together. And they return into the village saying, Krishna, today he killed Aghasura. Maybe you've seen snake skin. Yeah, so this dried serpentine skin. In India, they keep them sometimes in the libraries with the manuscripts. Yes, Arjuna Prabhu, it's Adipurush Prabhu. The idea is that what? Why would you keep? In the libraries, they'll keep the ancient libraries with the old manuscripts. They keep snake skins, like cobra skins, and peacock feathers. And the snake skin is to keep the protect, not just mystically, but apparently when the rats know, they can smell the snake. So and the mice, they smell the snake, and so they don't come and eat the books. So I've seen it in ancient Indian libraries. They have snake skins there around to keep the rats away. Maybe it's an idea for New York. We see rats here and there. You can recommend it to the mayor. Bring in some snake skins. Disperse them around. We could deal with the issue in an ancient Indian formula. Okay, so they've seen Aghasura's skin, but they're thinking that Krishna had killed him 1 year earlier. Now, 2 chapters earlier, in chapter 12, we have the description of Krishna killing Aghasura. And after killing Aghasura, the Brahma, the news spreads throughout the universe. This great thing has happened. Krishna has killed this great demon, Aghasura. Brahma himself, he comes to see what has happened. Demigods are showering flowers. They're celebrating. They're playing drums. Gandharvas are playing instruments. Apsaras are dancing. Brahma, his curiosity is aroused. What has happened here? And he sees the demigods, they're celebrating and they're glorifying Krishna for this great act. As he's observing this, then Krishna, he invites his friends to go to sit by the river for lunch. And so, although Krishna had, even there, Sukadeva Goswami says, Krishna killed the Aghasura demon, but the residents of Vrindavan, they won't hear about it for an entire year. And Parikshit Maharaj asks, why? Why did it take a whole year for the residents of Vrindavan to... The news is out in the universe. The Siddhas and the Charnas and the Gandharvas and the Apsaras and the Devas, they're all celebrating. Why don't the local village where it happened, why don't they get the news? Why does it take a whole year for them to get the news? And Sukadeva Goswami explains, after killing the demon, Krishna invited his friends for lunch. They sat on the bank of the river, and Krishna noticed that the cows had wandered off. He said to his friends, you keep eating, let me go find those cows. And the rest we know. Brahma, he was watching all of this and thinking, is this the Supreme Lord? He has killed this great snake. It's amazing. It's wonderful. But he's playing, he's just a kid. He's just a child. He's eating with his left hand on the bank of the river with other cowherds. The devatas are glorifying him, but who is he really? What is his glory, his greatness? And so Brahma is mohana. He's bewildered by these wonderful pastimes of Krishna. Krishna, the great supreme Godhead, acting in such a human-like way, but then contradictory because it's not entirely human-like. He's also killing a great serpent. But all of this has caused Brahma to become bewildered. And so he wants to test, and he does so by stealing the cowherd boys, returning them after seeing how Krishna had manifest another set, and then shown him that they were all him by having them transform into Vishnu forms. And then he returned the boys, and they are sitting there. They see Krishna return, and they say, you have returned so quickly. Welcome back, although it was a year. And they have said, today Krishna has killed the serpent. So we can forgive these falsehoods. They have no intention to deceive. They are speaking from their experience. They're speaking in good faith. They are speaking to their best knowledge, but we can still have some doubt. As a sadhana note, we can question, what about the idea that the pure devotee only speaks truth? What about the idea that whatever the pure devotee says is absolute and perfect and fully trustworthy? What about that idea? Can the devotee make mistakes? This would be an example where that idea is questions. Sometimes someone might find something in Prabhupada's written work. It might appear to be some mistake in the book, something the editors missed. And then we can doubt ourselves for having that doubt and become uncomfortable. Is that king called Dushyanta or Dushmanta? The first canto, 12th chapter, he's called Dushyanta. In the 9th canto, he's called Dushmanta. Same king, same story, but differently spelled name. Which one is correct? Or so we can have these doubts. How can a pure devotee make a mistake? And is it possible? So I'm not going to answer this question. We can return to it shortly. Let's go to Lord Brahma. Brahma, he was right. These falsehoods spoken by the cowherd boys at the end of chapter 14, they provide a contrast to the truths spoken by spoken by Brahma earlier in this chapter, the same chapter, Brahma's prayers to Krishna. He glorifies Krishna in this chapter as the reservoir of unlimited spiritual qualities. He glorifies Krishna as inconceivable. He glorifies Krishna as the complete shelter of the universe. He also tells Krishna, you are my father, which is a little awkward because Krishna's standing there with his yogurt rice in his left hand. He's just 5. And he has a man with 4 heads telling him, you're my dad. He has described the ways in which Brahma and Shiva are dependent on Vishnu. He explains Krishna's appearance in different incarnations.
Hello. Good morning. Hello.
Hare Krishna. We can all say, Hare Krishna. He says that by knowing Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes, one can be freed from material existence. And he comes to a most wonderful conclusion, that there is no way to know Krishna other than if Krishna reveals himself. Those who think they know Krishna don't know him. Those who know that they don't know him, they know something of him. So most wonderful truths spoken by Brahma. All of what he says is correct. But which is more pleasing? That's the question. So sadhana notes, we can be attached to being right and to being perfect. This is another type of challenge. Yudhisthira Maharaj, he wanted to be right and truthful at every instance. Krishna told him to tell a falsehood and he hesitated. In fact, he couldn't. Ashvatthama is dead. He couldn't say that. Bhim called an elephant on the opposing side. Ashvatthama killed him, and then Yudhisthira said, Ashvatthama, the elephant, is dead. And Krishna blew his conch shell as Yudhisthira said, the elephant. So Yudhisthira Maharaj couldn't be wrong. He couldn't speak an untruth. And he disobeyed Krishna. Krishna had told him to speak a lie. He couldn't do so. He couldn't bring himself to do it. The Brahma Patnis and the 23rd chapter of this 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. They're also unable to surmount this obstacle of dharma here, their virtue. They were unable to give up their virtue to surrender to Krishna. This was kind of like a last. They're so perfect, they couldn't give up their perfection to surrender to Krishna. And so that became their obstacle. And in the 29th chapter, if you read what Krishna tells the Brahmapatnis and what Krishna tells the gopis that come to him before the rasa dance, the verses are the same. Identical Sanskrit words, what Krishna speaks to the Brahmapatnis and what he speaks to the gopis. And the response of the Brahmapatnis is, okay, thank you, Krishna, we're going home. And the response of the gopis is, Krishna, how can you speak to us this way? We know the purpose of all Vedic dharma and teaching is to love you. And so don't deceive us. Their prayer is most wonderful. The Pranaya Gita, 29th chapter of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. So instead of being attached to being right, we should be attached to whatever is pleasing to Krishna. That's the principle here. For a devotee, the true perfection is not about being right, it's about being loving. It's about being devotional. Love for Krishna is the perfection that we are looking for, not someone who's always right. Krishna is conquered not by jnana, not by right knowledge. He's conquered by the love of his devotees. And so let's look at Krishna's reactions then to both. We can compare and contrast also from this chapter. The reactions, Krishna's responses both to Brahma and to the cowherd boys. It is said, Phalena parichite. Judge the tree by the fruit. And so much can be learned by this comparing and contrasting. We have compared and contrasted the words spoken by Brahma and the boys. Now we will look at Krishna's responses or reactions to the words of Brahma and these falsehoods spoken by the cowherd boys. So to Brahma, he responded how? Basically a non-response, silence. That's also a response. To say nothing is also to say something. The absence of communication is a type of communication. We communicate by not communicating. Krishna said nothing. Sukadeva Goswami says he gave him permission to leave. So Brahma, he had asked, he concluded his prayers by saying, may I have permission to leave? And Sukadeva Goswami says, Krishna gave him permission to leave and then went with his friends. And that's it. Brahma had spoken 40 verses. Verse 1 to 40 of this chapter. It's 40 verses. It's a lot of prayer. A lot that he sent to Krishna. And Krishna said nothing. He didn't reply. He collected his calves and he went and joined the boys for their lunch on the riverbank. And this is when they said, mistakenly, wrongly, you have returned so quickly. Although you and I know it was a year. How did Krishna react to these mistaken words spoken by the boys? Well, verse 46 tells us, we read it here. Tato hashan hrishikesho. Hasa means to smile, to laugh. Krishna smiled. Hrishikesha, the Lord, the master of the senses, he smiled. He heard the boys, you have come so quickly. Krishna smiled. His face blossomed with his lotus face bloomed with a smile. And he had lunch. He had lunch with these boys. And while returning home, so he had lunch with them. He went home with them. On the way home, hey guys, I want to show you something. Look at this big snake skin. Aghasura. Krishna showed the cowherd boys the skin of the dead serpent, Aghasura. So in contrast to Krishna's non-response to Brahma's correct words, his response to his friend's false words was to smile, to dine, and to go home, and to show them something very exciting and interesting. A very personal, loving, and intimate response to the cowherd boys. We have another indication of Krishna's response to the boys in verse 47 that we've read. And this is a wonderful description of Krishna's appearance among the cowherd boys. I'll read it to you. Verse 47. Lord Krishna's transcendental body was decorated with peacock feathers and flowers and painted with forest minerals, and his bamboo flute loudly and festively resounded. As he called out to his cows by name, his cowherd boyfriends purified the whole world by chanting his glories. Thus Lord Krishna entered the cow pasture of his father, Nanda Maharaj, and the sight of his beauty at once produced a great festival for the eyes of all the cowherd women. Krishna has revealed to his friends, he has manifest among his friends his form of sweetness. This form, Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. It is seen, Santas Sadeva Hridayeshu Vilokhayanti. It is seen by the topmost transcendentalist. Krishna's form of sweetness. It is decorated with peacock feathers and flowers. It is painted with mineral pigments from the forest. He's playing a bamboo flute loudly, resonantly. He's herding cows, and his beauty is creating a festival. This is a vision of the Lord of sweetness revealed to the cowherd boys. In contrast, what vision was shown to Lord Brahma? To shake him up. It was his Vishnu forms. We get some a nice description in this chapter as well. I'll read a couple of verses. All those personalities had 4 arms, holding a conch shell, disc, mace, and lotus flower in their hands. They wore helmets in their heads, earrings in their ears, garlands of forest flowers on their necks, around their necks. On the upper portion of the right side of their chests was the emblem of the goddess of fortune. Furthermore, they wore armlets on their arms and a constubed gem on their necks. They were marked with 3 lines like a conch shell and bracelets on their wrists, with bangles on their ankles, ornaments on their feet, sacred belts on their waists. They appeared very beautiful. So this is the Aishvarya Rupa. One form is intimate, Krishna at home with his friends. The other, majestic, Krishna as God, Krishna at the office, so to speak, where the relations are formal. Both are worthy of our adoration. But the Bhagavatam suggests to us that the form of sweetness and intimacy is more pleasing to Krishna. And those devotees who adore this form are most pleasing to Krishna. So, some final sadhana notes, some reflections. If you and I are attached to being right, we can adore the majestic form of Vishnu, who is correctly self-aware of his nature as God. He is all-knowing, sarvagyata, all-knowing, cognizant of his divinity and his supremacy over all beings, expressed as the supreme absolute truth. If you're willing to surrender, even to surrender being right, for being loving, and for being devotional, then we can aspire to serve Krishna's form of sweetness, where Krishna, overwhelmed by the love of his devotees, becomes mugdata, that is, forgetful of his own divinity. He thinks of himself as a devotee, as a devotee of Lord Narayan. He thinks of himself as the son of the Gopa, Nanda Maharaj, and the Gopi Yasoda. He thinks of himself as the friend of the cowherd boys and the lover of the gopis. So there are the possibilities that are there for us. So once again, to summarize, we have discussed the cowherd boys who made seemingly wrong statements. We compared that with the correct statements of Lord Brahma, and then with Krishna's responses to each of them. I'd like to conclude with a prayer by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Raghavartma Chandrika. He says, O Gokulananda, O enjoyer of amorous pastimes, Lila Vilasi, you are like a honeybee, attracted by and always relishing the beautiful, fragrant, budding flowers of devotion, wherever they are found. You are the deep mine of forgetfulness, mugdata, and omniscience, sarvagyata. O Lord, you have personally confirmed, I give my devotees the intelligence by which they can attain me. Thus I pray to you, O son of Nanda Maharaj, even when you are apparently forgetful of your divinity while performing pastimes with the Brajbasis, particularly the gopis, please nonetheless hear my prayers and bestow upon me that intelligence by which I can render service unto you. Okay, so I conclude. Any questions or comments, reflections in the room? Yes. Hari Purush Prabhu.
You turn that around, they can hear.
Sure. We'll try to find you here.
It's a
There you are.
wonderful class, extraordinary. What an interesting point how the criteria for whether something is what should be said, Sanksadya Haritoshanam, he made this wonderful point that it's pleasing to Krishna. We're thinking of Chanaka Pandit, he was the consultant, he was the advisor to the emperor. But he didn't take any salary from the emperor. He didn't live in the palace. He had a little hut off in the forest, and he was completely independent. So he wasn't a yes man. He was not dependent on the emperor for sustenance. So he was free to speak the truth, whether someone liked it or didn't like it. You know, and the Brahmin is like that also. We're beggars. And Prabhupada was like that too. Just like that story, the emperor's new clothes, right? The charlatans, they pretended they made a fine cloth, but actually it was nothing. And they fooled this nearsighted emperor to thinking he had this wonderful new suit. And he's walking through the town and no one would say anything, right? Because everybody was afraid that they would displease the emperor. But a little boy said, hey, why is the emperor naked? Right? So we want to be like that also, that we're free to speak the truth and we don't care. I mean, not that we don't care, but I mean, that we want to understand what Krishna wants to say. Somebody may like it, somebody may not like it, because some people are very inimical to Krishna consciousness. We know how we just had the appearance of Day of Jesus celebrated yesterday. And he just spoke the truth and they killed him, right? And he went before Pontius Pilate, the judge, and Pilate, what is your background? And Jesus said, I'm here to speak the truth. And those who want to hear the truth will hear my voice. But not everyone wants to hear the truth. But our criteria, you have to be very careful not to be swayed by or by popularity. We want to know, what is Krishna, what do you want me to say? And then that's our criteria.
Jai, Samsari Haritosha. I like that. Thank you.
That's why we have Prasadam.
Prasadam.
Yes, that is why we have Prasadam.
Okay, say more.
When they don't want to have to take Krishna in through the ears, because they've heard. A lot of people are atheists or agnostics, or rather animical, because they see so much hypocrisy. They see so much hypocrisy, especially in this day and age. And that's why we have Prashad, because it's purifying from the inside, and nobody's going to refuse a glubjaman. No one's going to refuse a beautiful song, or to watch. Sometimes you see these the Russian devotees when they do the kirtan, the Harinam in the streets with the beautiful dressed flower garden of Matajis up front in their colorful saris, all in synchronicity, and then you see the devotees behind with the Brihat Mardanga and singing, and everybody in the streets is mesmerized. So that's why Lord Chaitanya's movement remains aloof and transcendent from anybody's misgivings about the philosophy, because our philosophy is so appetizing, delicious. That's all I wanted to say. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So thank you so much, Bhim Prabhu. I see Andrea has a question here about Revati. How is she still alive after Revata went to visit Brahma and all those yugas passed and so many kings had since passed away? Yeah, Revata was so let's see, so much in love with his daughter, fatherly love. He took her with him to show her to Brahma and said, look, I can't see anyone who's qualified to marry her. There's this king, but yeah, I'm not sure. There's another king. So yeah, she was with him. So she stayed alive as well. And Brahma said, look, all those guys are long gone. Go and offer her to Lord Balaram. So yeah, thank you, Andrea. She lived because she was with her father in Brahmaloka. Okay, Ananda Manjari has already given the answer as well, I see.
I have a question.
Please, yeah. Ananda Manjari.
You were mentioning this point of asking questions and allowing ourselves to release our doubts by asking the questions. And I'm curious about, especially because you mentioned about the spiritual master speaking, and how can we both ask a question and simultaneously not give into the idea that we may be doubting the authority of the spiritual master. And I'm just thinking exactly in those terms, like how are we allowing our doubts to be dispelled and really bring the questions of our heart, and at the same time really remain in this mood of seeing ourselves subordinate.
Yeah. So the real, so there's I don't know where I've read this, but I heard it, that Prabhupada was once here in New York City, and somebody asked him, someone challenged him, Swami, do you know everything? Prabhupada said, I know Krishna, and Krishna is everything. And then he said, how many windows in the Empire State Building? And Prabhupada said, how many windows in a mirage? That many.
Drops of water in a mirage.
How many drops of water in a mirage? That many. So there are some things that are just really not important. A detail. We can get, hung up on this detail or that detail. The real point is the essence of loving Krishna. Some Siddhi Haritoshana. So the spiritual master is one who loves Krishna. And the spiritual master is one who can share that love for Krishna with you and help you to come to Krishna. That's the most important point. And so that is the essence of the truth that the spiritual master will reveal to you. And yeah, you might find one little thing here or there that's, you can prove wrong, but we don't need to do that. The main thing is to the essence, the ultimate truth is loving Krishna. Does that answer your question, Ananda Manjari?
Yeah, I think it actually answers the intention of the question. And
Good.
I guess I'm also just still looking for yeah, the reassurance that asking questions is welcomed, especially, yeah, I feel like the
Yeah.
question of how many windows are in the Empire
Yeah.
State is just completely unnecessary. So it also teaches that what question are we asking?
Okay, very good. Well, I'm going to need to finish. Radha Mullidhar want to reveal themselves to us. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol.
Please explain to me how this is true.
Right.
I think that's true.
Yeah, you can. But I mean, some things.
Yeah.
You know, is it? Something's just like that. Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Vedam
Okay. Hare Krishna. I'm here in the temple room in the back. And when I was offering obeisances to the deities, Arjuna Prabhu tapped me on the head. Then Adipusha Prabhu put his lotus hand, his guitar playing hand on my chest. It was so nice to be touched by devotees physically. So, yeah. And there he is. Adipusha Prabhu. It's not about being right. It's about being attached to pleasing Krishna. Adipusha Prabhu embodies this principle. Look at him. He's not attached to being right. He's attached to pleasing Krishna. Hare Krishna. So it's afterglow time. If anyone would like to share anything, now is the time.
Just one more thing.
Just one more thing.
Yeah. She was asking a really good question about what if you have a question? Is that down the spiritual master if you're asking? So we approach the spiritual master quite submissively. If we hear something that doesn't set right, we say, please explain to me how this is true. How is this true? I can't understand how this is true. Not, is this true? But, we understand that what the spiritual master is speaking is accurate and perfect. But we may not be able to clearly assimilate it. So we have to ask his help like that. We'll go to Prabhu.
Thank you, Adipusha Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu, can you explain us how it's true that Krishna is so wonderful, that he gives us this association of the devotees like you?
I think it's our only chance. If you're in quicksand and you try to save yourself, you're in trouble. Somebody has to reach down and grab you by the hand and pull you out of that muck. So that's why we need, and either we have the association. It's amazing that you should ask that, because I was reading a letter written by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Hope I can remember the essence of what he said, but he basically said if we associate, if we willingly take association, and we know what that means, that doesn't mean just glancing upon or helping or working with, but if we associate with non-devotees, then it will surely be our ruination. So we have to be humble enough to at least understand that we're always constantly being affected by the frequencies put forth from the hearts of others. And the devotees, they have the greatest frequency. It's music when devotees are around. It's always a celebration when devotees are around. I've noticed that because I'm not around devotees much. Sometimes I do. I can come down and I can just feel a certain way, and then I drive all the way to New York, and I spend a meager. Last time I drove, it took me 4.5 hours to get down, and then on the way back, I didn't make it back because of the storm. So it took me 12 hours to get back, or 8 hours to get back. And yet I only spent a half an hour with you guys, including you, Ananda Bihari. And what made it all worth the trip was that half an hour that I spent with Adi Purush, yourself, Das, Domi, and also, to be truthful, what made it all worth the while was 2 slices of poppy pie cooked by your wife, which is the thing that put me to sleep. So Hare Krishna, if that's not enough, if the prasadam is not enough to convince us to be hanging out with devotees, then we probably have a few life. As my son says, Dad, you just earned another 100 lifetimes. So Hare Krishna.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be on the same frequency with you and all of your dear devotees. William, Yogeshwari, Suzanne, Arjuna Prabhu, Bruce, are you driving? Pink Yogi of Harlem, Isabel Isa. We love you dearly. Please come back tomorrow. And it's time to start thinking about our New Year's resolutions. I have my list. I'll keep it private. It's too embarrassing. But it's time to start putting that together. All right. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama.
Ananda Bihari.
Yeah.
Is one of those resolutions to put some pictures in those rooms of yours so your people don't think that they're being put in solitary confinement?
Good resolution. Good. I'm not standing in the way. Thank you. Thank you for doing that, Bhima.
You're not standing in the way. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Keep feeding me pie.
Yes. Yes. My resolution is to serve Bhima more. Serve Bhima Prabhu more proactively. Okay. Hare Krishna. Love you all. Hari Hari Bol.